It was portrayed as a family's act of love, welcoming a new sister wife and carrying her burdens together, a moving symbol of plural marriage. But behind that story lies a hidden lawsuit, one that has only recently surfaced. A lawsuit that suggests this wasn't about faith or family at all, but rather the opening move in a decade-long financial con. This is the story of that lawsuit. The tale of Janelle Brown versus Robyn Brown. The tale of the debt that broke a family. What you're about to hear is based on insider reports, confidential legal analysis, and an extensive probe into the financial history of the Brown family. This is the narrative that TLC didn't want you to hear. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. I need your assistance. If you believe the truth is worth being told, give this a like. And if you're interested in finding out every secret scandal and every untold secret in Sister Wives, be sure to subscribe and activate notifications because you won't want to miss a single moment. To learn how this case began, let's turn back the clock to a time prior to celebrity status, prior to reality show cash, prior to the 5 giant mansions they couldn't possibly afford, to Lehi, Utah. This is where the Brown family dynamics were first forged. Kody, the father figure. Meri, his official wife. Janelle, the second wife dubbed the family's financial pillar. And Christine, the third wife, the stay-at-home mother and emotional center of the household. Janelle was not just another wife. She was the lifeblood financially of the family. With her secure government position and steady paycheck, she funded the entire household. While Kody pursued big aspirations and the other wives took care of the home, Janelle kept the books balanced and the family in the black. Everyone served a purpose, and everyone pulled their weight. This wasn't a family per se, it was more of a corporation with one goal and, more importantly, one bank account. Kody taught it relentlessly. They weren't 4 different households, but a single unified unit. If one person prospered, they all prospered. If one struggled, the rest made sacrifices. And Janelle completely practiced this maxim, investing her career, her paycheck, and every penny she made into the communal pot. And then, in 2010, it all changed. Kody felt compelled to bring home a 5th wife, and he started courting Robyn Sullivan, a younger, divorced mom of 3. The minute she appeared on screen, Robyn was unlike anyone else. Emotional, sentimental, openly demonstrative with Kody. But she also had what she tearfully referred to as baggage. That baggage had a price tag, over $30,000 in debt. Credit cards, store accounts, outstanding bills from a previous life, debts she wanted to wipe out. For a family already living on the edge, with previous bankruptcies and a bare-bones budget, assuming this new expense was no small thing. It was debated fiercely by the family at home, insiders report. Christine was concerned about how in the world they could make it work. Janelle, the pragmatist, was looking at the numbers and understood the great sacrifice it would require. But Kody did not care. He was smitten. And to him, the family's role was to erase Robyn's past, to clean her slate so she could be fully included. Kody told his wives in the world, we're all in this together. Her bills are our bills. Her children are my children. That's the deal. Those 3 words, that's the deal, would later become the very cornerstone of Janelle's legal argument. Because what Kody had unknowingly described was, in legal terms, an implied contract. An implicit contract is not on paper or signed, but it's known through the actions and assumptions of all parties involved. Here, the arrangement was evident. The Brown clan, supported mostly by Janelle's earnings, would take on Robyn's $32,000 loan. In exchange, Robyn would become part of the family unit, sharing her labor, her existence, and ultimately her income, just like the other wives had from the beginning. The suit contends this was not charity, it was not a gift, it was an investment, a buy-in. The settling of Robyn's debt wiped away her past and presented her with a fresh, clean financial slate so she could fairly contribute going forward. The family consented. The money, $32,000, according to court documents, was drawn out of the shared pool. Janelle solemnly and responsibly went back to work, adding up the sacrifices it would mean: the overtime, the vacations they never took, the house repairs delayed for years. She did it because she was convinced by the principle. She was convinced by the bargain. But as it turned out, it was just the beginning. Not with one act, mind you, but with a gradual, methodical move, a campaign of financial distancing waged by Kody and Robyn. And the first warning sign? Say a source who worked with the show's first seasons. It came on Robyn's wedding dress shopping excursion. Whereas the first three wives had plain and simple weddings, Kody handled Robyn's wedding in a totally different manner. In place of thrift and frugality, he swept her off to a grand multi-state tour to select the ideal wedding gown. It was a luxury that stunned everyone who was aware of the family's financial constraints. One source described, with the other wives, every dime was pinched. They'd fight over how much a family dinner cost. But with Robyn, it was as if Kody had a hidden credit card. The explanation was always, this is her first big wedding, she's entitled. It was the first visible crack in the family's money unity. Suddenly, there was money for the family and then money for Robyn. And it didn't end there. Following the pricey dress was a 10-day honeymoon, something no other wife had been afforded. While Meri, Janelle, and Christine were left behind at home tending to 13 children on an already tight budget, Kody and Robyn were in San Diego, growing close that seemed to be more and more apart from the group. Then the relocation to Las Vegas. Compelled by impending legal action against polygamy, the Browns made the move with a new source of funds: a humongous TLC payday. For the first time, they had more money than ever. This ought to have been the time Robyn started pitching in to the family pool. After all, the success of the show and much of its conflict was spurred by her emergence. But from Janelle's lawsuit, that was when Kody and Robyn started to create something other than an independent financial empire. Rather than integrate into the collective, they started to function as a nuclear family within the extended plural marriage. This is where the breach of contract in the lawsuit became irreducible. Robyn hadn't merely joined the Browns. She and Kody were diverting assets from the collective to create their own bunker. Janelle's attorneys later referred to this phase as the hoarding phase. Meanwhile, Janelle and Christine religiously invested their TLC profits into the joint account, paying mortgages on 4 houses, sustaining a small army of children, and covering piling medical bills. Kody and Robyn were making far different decisions. A forensic accounts report, submitted as Exhibit A in the case, recounted the tale in figures. For more than 12 years, the Brown family's income and expenses were followed by analysts. The verdict? A textbook case of resource diversion. The specialists elucidated the TLC earnings were put into the central account and money was taken out of there for every household. But Kody and Robyn's household always and frequently spectacularly withdrawn more. At the same time, we could not find much proof of Robyn's side businesses, such as My Sister Wife's Closet, contributing money back into the family fund. The direction was one way, from the family account into Kody and Robyn's household. And it wasn't all about larger bills. The lawsuit claims it was strategic, a purposeful draining of communal resources to accumulate a private war chest. While Janelle worked in a humble car and resided in rentals, Kody and Robyn rented high-end vehicles. While Christine fought to pay for her daughter Isabel's scoliosis surgery, Robyn stocked her home with costly furniture and collectibles. But the strongest evidence was around one company, My Sister Wife's Closet. When it opened, the jewelry line was marketed as a shared endeavor, a chance for all 4 wives to establish financial independence together. Everybody was listed as partners. The initial capital, so the lawsuit alleges, came straight from the family's joint account. But in practice, it soon became Robyn's solo project, with Kody serving as de facto CEO. A former employee who asked not to be named said it was the Robyn and Kody show. Meri would provide design ideas and be pushed aside. Christine assisted when she could, packaging shipments, but was tied up with the children. Janelle took care of the finances, attempting to find ways to get it profitable. But Kody and Robyn dictated the vision, buying pricey stock that wouldn't sell. It was obvious whose business this was, really. The suit claims that any profits weren't distributed back into the family pot, as agreed. Instead, they were reinvested by Robyn or spent on salaries and expenses that benefited her household principally. What had begun as a joint undertaking had turned into a standalone financial system bankrolled by the Browns, but serving only Robyn. For Janelle, it wasn't merely mismanagement. It was betrayal. She hadn't invested in Robyn as a person, she had invested in an earning partner. Seeing my sister wife's closet become another drain on family finances was, as one friend described it, devastating. The trend only intensified with the relocation to Flagstaff. The acquisition of Coyote Pass was the Browns' largest risk so far, land designed to secure the family's future. Everyone had to pitch in. Everyone had to give up something. But again, the resource distribution was far from equal. Robyn and Kody turned down several rental houses until they found a $1 million home well above what the other wives received. Janelle was relegated to a small rental and eventually an RV. The rationale was that Robyn's house would ultimately be bought outright. But the other wives, also in temporary residence, weren't given that same option. Christine resided in a small house, one she had purchased on her own. Meri, alone, had a large rental property away from the others. But Robyn, she and Kody bought what viewers would end up referring to as Robyn's mansion, $1 million estate that was the tipping point. The down payment, again, was taken from family money. It was a clear, unmissable statement. Robyn and her children's comfort was the family's highest financial priority. Everyone else was secondary. For Janelle, it changed the past. The initial $32,000 payoff of Robyn's debt was no longer merely a dubious choice. It appeared to be something much worse, a fraudulent transfer. Legally, a fraudulent conveyance is when assets are transferred with the aim to defraud or prejudice a creditor. Under this system, Janelle, and by deduction, the Brown family unit were the creditors. They had borrowed $32,000 from Robyn with the understanding that she would be reimbursed by contribution. Instead of contributing, however, Robyn and Kody had diverted additional resources to themselves, debilitating the family's economic well-being. Living in a dirt lot in an RV at Coyote Pass, not even able to break ground on her new home, Janelle supposedly started connecting the dots. She met with a financial advisor, posing the simple question: where did all the money go? The prognosis was stark, so one-sided it prompted her to meet with an attorney. That lawyer paid attention. The first debt repayment, the vow of togetherness, the siphoning of funds, the ill-fated business venture, the $1 million home. What he witnessed was more than family dysfunction. It was a 12-year financial scam, a violation of implied contract. He laid it out to Janelle plainly. Kody's assurance, that's the deal, was binding. By taking the $32,000, Robyn had agreed in effect to join the family venture and contribute. But by stockpiling assets, keeping her affairs separate, and not sharing fairly, she had been breaking that deal from day one. This had nothing to do with jealousy. This wasn't about a troubled marriage. This was about fraud. About a woman who had shouldered the financial load of the family, finally deciding to balance the books. And what she found wasn't merely a debt of $32,000. It was a mountain of unpaid bills, a debt of effort, a debt of good faith, a debt of loyalty. And Janelle was intent on collecting. The suit, docketed as Janelle Brown v. Robyn Brown, caused shockwaves within the splintered family. When the documents were served at Robyn's Flagstaff estate, our insiders report pandemonium. Kody allegedly flew into a rage, claiming Janelle had betrayed him, dismantled the family for cash. Robyn broke down in sobs, positioning herself as the victim of jealousy and cruelty. But Janelle was unyielding. At last, after all the years of silence, she discovered her voice not in some family row, but in a carefully crafted legal complaint. She retained Elizabeth Vance, a smart, no-nonsense lawyer with a reputation in legal circles as a giant killer who represented partners in dispute and financial forensics. Robyn and Kody, on the other hand, selected an attorney with a distinctly different approach: flashy, flamboyant, a fellow who liked courtroom drama and public sentiment more than hard facts. Both parties preferred a media-free forum, so they signed binding arbitration, an out-of-public view trial conducted by a retired judge. But even in private, facts started leaking out facts more dynamite than anything ever broadcast on TLC. The trial began on a crisp fall morning. The tension was charged. Janelle sat calm beside her attorney. Robyn gripped Kody across the room, who as a non-defendant hung as her most important witness. Eyewitness accounts describe him glowering through the proceedings, a tempest of patriarchal fury. Then the fireworks began. Elizabeth Vance spoke to the judge in dissective clarity. This isn't a case about wounded feelings or a failed plural marriage. This is about a breached contract. My client, Janelle Brown, as the chief financial contributor to the Brown Family Partnership, paid $32,000 to retire the defendant's premarital debt. This was not a gift. It was a buy-in. A purchase made with the express understanding that Miss Brown was devoting her time and future income to the venture. Rather, we will demonstrate that she and her husband had a 12-year habit of diverting resources, hoarding money, and acting in bad faith, leaving my client and her children financially disadvantaged while making themselves richer. Robyn's lawyer shot back with emotional drama. He characterized Janelle as resentful, jealous of Kody's favoritism. He contended the $32,000 was merely a spontaneous gift, an expression of love to bring in a new sister wife. This lawsuit, he asserted, was a move to monetize family relationships. But the emotional shield started crumbling once the evidence came in. The first witness to be called was Janelle Brown herself. Composed, thoughtful, and unshakable, she started to lead the judge through her 20 years within the Brown family. Janelle came forward first. She testified softly with pride about her work, about her 6 children, and about the burden she had borne to keep the family afloat. She described the one-pot money system, each wife putting money into a single pot to share with common expenses, a system that would only work if everyone contributed equally. Attorney Vance leaned forward. Miss Brown, when the family agreed to pay off Robyn's debts, what was your understanding of what the family would receive in return? Janelle's answer was steady but firm. I thought we were getting a partner, a sister wife who would come in and join us, work with us, and help us build our future. Paying off her old debts was meant to set her free to invest in our joint life. We weren't paying bills, we were investing in someone who we believed was investing in us. Vance asked gently, and did that happen, Janelle? Her tone grew hard. Her number, it was different from the get-go. Resources were drawn to her and her kids that never existed for the rest of us. The money bifurcated into 2 paths, one for Robyn and Kody, and one for the rest of us. Her testimony established the emotional foundation, but the case would be decided not on emotion, but on math. That's when Exhibit A, the accounting ledger, came into play. A forensic accountant testified, with 12 years' worth of records at his disposal. For almost a whole day, he showed slides and charts following the money's path through Brown family accounts. Here we have the first $32,000 expenditure in 2010 to pay off the defendant's debts. He started. Here's what comes next, a steady pattern. For 12 years, Janelle's deposits job and TLC income were regular and significant. Christine's were regular. Meri's increased sizably after her bed and breakfast became so successful. But from Robyn Brown, deposits to the communal account were, to put it bluntly, statistically irrelevant. Then there was Sister Wives' closet. The accountant said the family had spun it as a family business, but structurally it was unclear. The initial investment and inventory costs came from the family account, but nothing worthwhile was ever repaid. Instead, the profit streamed mainly into Robyn's home. Finally, he revealed a slide that reportedly stunned the room into silence. a comparative breakdown of discretionary spending across the wives' households. The gap was staggering. Vacations, vehicles, luxury goods. Robyn's household outspent the others by wide margins for over a decade. Vance asked the crucial question: in your professional opinion, do these numbers reflect a unified communal partnership? The accountant didn't hesitate. Not at all. What they reveal is a parent company drained to feed a single favored subsidiary on the backs of everyone else. Robyn's attorney leapt on cross-examination, leveling accusations against the expert for misinterpreting the unusual plural family dynamic. But the figures remained chilling and unbeatable. And then there was Exhibit B, the Queen Victoria testimony. Janelle's team summoned one of the original producers from Sister Wives' early seasons. With anonymity granted, she had maintained detailed notes and diaries throughout her time with the family. Lawyer Vance inquired, "Can you tell us the attitude of the defendant when the family settled her debt?" The producer replied, asterisk, "She was relieved, sure, but entitled too." Behind the camera, shortly afterwards, she referred to the $30,000 as her dowry. "I documented it in my journal that evening." She said, "It's like they're making me whole at last." Kody says it's their responsibility to offer me a do-over. Asterisk. The term dowry lingered in the courtroom like a thunderclap. A dowry is not an investment, it's a payment, a gift, a transfer of assets. It implied that Robyn never thought she was obligated to the family in repayment. The producer went on, "Kody was smitten. He explained to me, the other wives had 20 years with me. Robyn is beginning at the beginning. It's only right we create a level playing field for her. In the production office, we called her Queen Victoria. That's how she behaved like she was entitled to it." The evidence was crippling. It cut directly to the issue of intent. If Kody and Robyn viewed the payment of the debt as a fulfilled obligation instead of a mutual contract, then the implied contract had already been violated before it could have started. Last but not least, it was Robyn's turn on the stand. Her testimony was a masterclass in emotional manipulation. Tears streamed freely as she professed her love for Kody, her wish to be a good sister wife, and her alleged inability to control money. "Kody always took care of the money," she maintained in tears. "I just trusted him. I didn't ask for more than anyone else. I gave my all to Sister Wives' closet." To have Janelle make these claims, everything gets twisted around. The $32,000 was not a contract, it was love. Her words were moving, her performance sincere. But whether or not the judge would believe them as truth or as evasion was the question that remained. Robyn attempted to spin her tale as one of selfless devotion and sacrifice, stating that any money she had received was merely a mother doing what was best for her kid. But under cross-examination, attorney Elizabeth Vance tore that image apart, piece by piece. She showed Robyn bank statements with lavish purchases made to accounts. Robyn alone held. Next were the text messages and emails proof, where Robyn undoubtedly instructed Kody on significant financial choices, the Flagstaff house purchase being one of them. One email stated, "The other houses aren't okay. Kody needs to realize that we need a house of this size and in this area, period." Vance turned to Robyn and asked, "Sounds like someone with no control over money?" Robyn attempted to stand firm, explaining that she was only looking out for her kids, but the flaws in her victim story started to emerge. She wasn't a bystander, she was a force, actively acquiring resources for her own advantage. Next came the time that everyone had been waiting for. Kody Brown himself testified, and what preceded was nothing short of a debacle for Robyn's defense. Kody, filled with rage and self-righteousness, set out to uphold Robyn's honor. What he did was confirm every last one of Janelle's accusations. He raved about loyalty, stating, "I run this family. I control the finances. I determine where the resources are going to go." Robyn was obedient. She was respectful towards me. Janelle was too independent, always off doing her own thing. Of course, I took care of the wife who was loyal to me. In that fiery confession, Kody laid it all bare. Under oath, he confessed to knowing and purposefully directing family money towards Robyn, establishing a two-level system in which loyalty, not justice, dictated funds. What he believed was a form of defense was actually the nail in the coffin. By the time closing arguments arrived, Janelle's attorneys had a mountain of evidence. The implied contract established in 2010 years of fiscal mismanagement, and Kody's own words affirming the favoritism. Robyn's attorney, with little to base an argument on, could only try to appeal to sympathy, portraying her as a tragic figure in a dysfunctional family, but the judge was not moved by passion. A no-nonsense judge, she deliberated for 2 weeks before handing down a blistering verdict. The court voted almost unanimously for Janelle. In her written ruling, the judge discredited the defense argument that the money was a gift. She stated, "The very nature of the Brown family's communal financial structure precludes the idea of a gift of this magnitude. It was an investment in a new partner." The ruling also declared that Robyn had not entered into the family in good faith. She had taken money to settle her own debt, then proceeded to treat the shared money like it was her account. The judge used Kody's testimony as evidence of intentional favoritism and violation of the family's financial covenant. Robyn was required to pay back the original $32,000, but that was only part of it. The court also figured 12 years of missed growth on the money. The verdict? A whopping $75,000. The consequences were disastrous for Kody and Robyn. Sources indicate they had to secure a second mortgage on their Flagstaff residence, the very epitome of their preferred treatment. Their financial superiority had collapsed. For Janelle, the win was more about justice and less about the money. That $75,000 was legitimation, confirmation that all her years of hard work and sacrifice were worth something. Finally, after all these years, she could break free from the shackles of debt. Christine, her longtime ally, quietly celebrated the verdict, seeing it as justice not just for Janelle, but for herself too. Meri's reaction, however, was more complicated, a mix of relief, sadness, and perhaps recognition of her own unresolved financial wounds. And so, the court case, the hidden chapter never televised on TLC, uncovered the real destruction of the Brown family. It wasn't jealousy or love that destroyed them, it was money. A $32,000 debt that was designed to bring the family together ended up being the toxin that broke them apart. Finally, Janelle, the unobtrusive breadwinner, got the last word. She brought the books into balance, revealed the favoritism, and recovered her value. The queen had checkmated. The king had toppled.